Good afternoon. I hope you're having a great Sunday. Today is a very special and auspicious day because today marks the 31st Yahrzeit anniversary of passing of our beloved Rebbe, the Lubavitcher Rebbe of blessed memory, the founder of all the Chabad houses around the world, in every corner of the globe, and the one that inspired hundreds of thousands, if not millions, to lead a life of purpose, of value, of kindness, of love, of spirituality, of connection to Torah and mitzvahs. Last night, right after Shabbos, Gruni and I got into the car with some of our kids. It was late, it was 10 p.m., and we drove to Queens, to the gravesite, to the resting place, to the Ohel of the Lubavitcher Rebbe. We arrived there after 1 a.m., and after writing a note and asking for prayers and blessings, we got into a line. Now this was after 2 a.m. already. And we got into a line with thousands of others and waited for over an hour just to get 1 minute to circle around, to read our note and to rip it and put it into the grave where the Rebbe rests. Now, while I waited in line, we said our prayers, we said our psalms, we asked God to intercede on behalf of the Jewish people, on behalf of kindness, of tolerance, of love, of peace, of unity amongst the Jewish people and amongst the whole world. But think about it. 31 years ago, the Rebbe passed. This is 31 years later, and on his Yahrzeit, at 3 a.m., it felt like the middle of the day. Thousands of people, secular, religious, Jewish, Gentile, old and young alike, all were there. Just 2 nights ago, or 3 nights ago, middle of the night at 2 a.m., the mayor of New York City, Mayor Eric Adams, showed up to pray at 2 a.m. at the Rebbe's gravesite. The Prime Minister of Israel sent the most beautiful message out on his social media about the greatness of this day. And President Trump wrote a letter to Chabad all over the world and to the world, recognizing this auspicious day and the impact that the Rebbe's gravesite had on him. What is it about the Rebbe that took people of all walks of life, right, left, center, secular, observant, Jewish, Gentile, great CEOs, entrepreneurs, leaders, or just ordinary people, to flock to his gravesite after so many years of his passing, to be inspired by his message so long after his passing? You know, very often, the Rebbe's Yahrzeit comes out, falls, on the week when we read the Torah portion of Chukat, which is what we began reading this morning, and we will read this coming Shabbos. Chukat is the Torah portion where both Miriam and Aaron, Moses' brother and sister, pass, and the Torah portion in which we find out that Moses will pass away and won't be able to be the one to lead the Jewish people into the Holy Land of Israel. Imagine the greatest leader, Moses, who led the Jews, who stood up to Pharaoh, who led the Jews out of Egypt, who crossed the Jews over the sea, who brought them to Mount Sinai. And he was not going to be the one to lead the Jews into Israel. Miriam, who was the greatest Jewish woman, the prophetess, who in her merit the Jews had the well of Miriam in the desert, who sustained the Jews with faith, passes away. Aaron, the one who loved and pursued peace, who was the high priest, passes away in this portion. But yet we notice something. 3,300 plus years after their passing, Moses, Aaron, and Miriam are alive as ever. Their Torah that they taught the Jewish people, the messages that they embodied. You ask any Jew anywhere in the world, and they'll tell you about Miriam, about Aaron, and of course about Moses. We call the Torah of Moshe. The tefillin we wrap are the same that Moses taught us to wrap. The Torah we read is the same. The ideals, the values are the ones they taught us. Because what we realize in this week's Torah portion is that life is not just a physical thing. Life is about values. It's about purpose. It's about the impact we have and the legacy we leave. You know, in America, there's a tradition that every president has a library that becomes their legacy. Big monuments, statues. But Moses and Aaron didn't leave monuments and statues. The Lubavitcher Rebbe didn't leave a monument. He didn't leave a statue. What the Rebbe left us was a mission statement, was a purpose, was a call, a crying call to reach out, to touch with love, to bring a time of redemption, to bring a time of the prophecy of Isaiah, when the lamb will lie with the wolf, when we will turn swords into plow shields. To dream of something greater than us, to dream of a world that's a utopia, a world that Isaiah promises us is a messianic era. But how do we get there? We get there by the little deeds we do. That have always taught us that every action counts, every deed. Matter of action is the thing that matters most in the world we live in. We live in a physical world. It's not just what you think, it's not just what you talk, but most importantly, what you do. And that I encourage everyone, if you can't keep all the Torah mitzvahs, if you can't do everything, start with something small. He always reminded us of what Maimonides said, that a person should always see the world as equal between good and bad, and that their one deed could tip the scale for good. Everything we do matters, and everyone has a purpose that they could fill and nobody else could fill. You know, the Rebbe's secretary, Benjamin Klein, Rabbi Klein, shared this story about when Menachem Begin was a Knesset member before he became the prime minister. And one time, he came to visit the Rebbe, and the Rebbe asked him, how are you going back to Israel? And this was in the 50s, the late 50s, I think, or maybe and there was no direct flight. He was taking a connecting flight. And the Rebbe said, are you going through Paris? And he says, no. And the Rebbe said, would you consider changing your route to go through Paris, and I will pay the difference? And he said, Rebbe, what do you need? He said, there's a girl who lives in Paris, who's dating a Gentile, who's marrying out. And we've tried to persuade her to build a Jewish home, to marry into the Jewish faith, but to no avail. But she's a big Zionist, and I think if you would go speak to her, you might be able to impact her. Menachem Begin agreed, changed his plans, and spent the day in Paris, where he spoke to this girl and had an impact on her. Rabbi Klein always finished the story by saying, today, not only did she marry Jewish, but her children are Chabad emissaries running Chabad houses over the world. Think about it. The leader of the Chabad movement, a minister in the government who was going to become the prime minister. But what was the Rebbe thinking about? This one girl in Paris who could use some love, who could use some encouragement to connect to her Judaism, to her spirituality, to her heritage. That's who the Rebbe was. The Rebbe had a place in his heart for everyone. Tolerance, love. You could. He wanted you to be the best you could. He wanted you to fulfill the purpose in your life. And that's the message and the mission that I hope we get today. Just like Korach, every year we read about the passing of Aaron and Miriam and notified about Moses' passing, but we realize how they still live today in such an important and valuable way. We have to make sure that the mission that the Rebbe taught us is something we strengthen. More love, more Judaism, more spirituality to this world. So if you get a moment today, wrap tefillin, study something in Torah, go on to Chabad.org and read something. Write a note of prayer. You can go to Ohel at ohelchabad.org, or go onto our website, or see the email I sent today. Let's strengthen the mission purpose, and let's make this world a better place for everyone. Have a great day.